Brenda Lawson watched Marcus Reed as he stepped onto the flight and looked down the aisle. The cabin was already buzzing with activity as passengers tucked bags into overhead compartments. He maneuvered past a few travelers still standing, muttering a polite "excuse me" as he made his way toward his seat near the emergency exit a few rows back. Brenda watched him over the top of her magazine. She had noticed him the moment he boarded. His calm demeanor caught her attention. Her eyes followed his movements as he settled into his seat and checked his bag. She could not quite put her finger on it, but something about him seemed off. Her fingers drummed nervously on the armrest as she pretended to read the article in front of her, though she had not processed a single word. "Excuse me," Brenda said quietly, raising a hand as Emily, the flight attendant, passed by. Emily paused, a polite smile on her face. "Yes, ma'am. How can I help you?" Brenda glanced briefly at Marcus, who was now flipping through the pages of his book. "That man near the emergency exit," she said in a low voice, leaning slightly toward Emily. "Is it really safe to have someone like him sitting there?" Emily followed Brenda's gaze. Marcus was sitting quietly, absorbed in his book. Emily's smile never faltered. "I assure you, ma'am, everyone on board has gone through security. Our seating arrangements comply with safety regulations." Brenda's lips tightened. "I just thought, with everything you hear on the news these days, it is better to be cautious, is it not?" Emily's polite smile stayed in place, though her eyes narrowed slightly, almost imperceptibly. "If there is anything specific you are concerned about, please let me know. We want all our passengers to feel safe and comfortable." She nodded politely and continued down the aisle. Brenda watched Emily walk away, irritation flickering in her chest. How could the flight attendant be so dismissive? She shook her head and returned her gaze to Marcus, who had put his book down momentarily and was now reaching into his bag. Her mind started racing. What was he looking for? What could he be hiding? She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, unable to tear her eyes away. Marcus, unaware of the attention, pulled out his medication and checked the label. He tucked it back into the bag after a moment, then resumed reading. He could feel the calm washing over him, slowly distancing himself from the stress of the week. He did not notice the tension slowly building behind him. Emily moved down the aisle, continuing her pre-flight checks. As she reached the back of the plane, she exchanged a glance with her colleague, Alex. She leaned in closer and whispered, "Keep an eye on the passenger near the emergency exit. The woman in Brenda's row seems a little agitated about him." Alex nodded. "We will do. What is the issue?" Emily shrugged lightly. "Nothing specific, just one of those gut feelings, I guess." She tried to brush off the unease. She had been on enough flights to recognize the signs of trouble brewing, but it was too early to tell if this was one of those cases. Brenda shifted again in her seat, her eyes narrowing as she continued to watch Marcus. The plane engines began to hum louder, signaling that takeoff was imminent. Marcus put his book away and looked out the window, his face a picture of calm. Brenda's mind, however, was anything but. She tightened her grip on the armrests, trying to shake the sense of foreboding that had settled in her chest. As the plane leveled off after takeoff, the captain's voice came over the intercom, welcoming everyone on board and giving a brief overview of the flight plan. The seatbelt sign dinged off, and passengers began to settle into their routines. Some pulled out laptops, while others opted for in-flight movies or books. Flight attendants moved through the aisles, checking on passengers and offering refreshments. Marcus Reed sat back in his seat, glancing out the window at the clouds rolling past. He felt the tension in his shoulders begin to ease. He reached down, unzipped his carry-on bag, and took out a small water bottle. As he did, he noticed Brenda in his peripheral vision, her eyes fixed on him. He paused for a moment, then dismissed it, assuming she was just glancing around like many others. A few rows behind, Brenda's discomfort only grew. She watched as Marcus carefully zipped his bag back up after taking out the water bottle. What was he hiding in there? The way he kept checking the bag as if to make sure its contents were secure seemed suspicious to her. She glanced around at the other passengers. Most were engaged in their own worlds, oblivious to what she saw as a potential threat. Unable to shake the feeling of unease, Brenda signaled for Emily, the flight attendant. Emily, noticing the raised hand, approached with a friendly smile. "Yes, ma'am. Is there something you need?" Emily asked, keeping her tone light and professional. Brenda leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper, trying not to draw attention. "That man up there, the one near the emergency exit. I have been watching him. He keeps checking that bag of his like he is nervous about something inside it. I really think you should look into it." Emily glanced toward Marcus, then back to Brenda. Her expression remained calm. I understand your concern, ma'am, but as I mentioned before, unless there is a clear indication of something amiss, we cannot inspect other passengers' belongings without reason. He has not caused any disruption, and his behavior appears normal. Brenda's face tightened. Normal? How can you say that? People like him, they always act normal until they do not. I have seen it on the news. We cannot just sit here and do nothing. What if there is something dangerous in that bag? Emily maintained her composure, her training kicking in. We have security measures in place, ma'am. Everyone on this flight has gone through screening. Please try to relax and enjoy the flight. If you notice anything more concrete, let us know. Brenda huffed, crossing her arms. You people never take things seriously until it is too late, she muttered under her breath. Emily heard the comment, but chose not to respond. She gave Brenda a polite nod and continued down the aisle, trying to shake off the conversation. Her years of experience taught her to handle such situations with caution, but this was starting to feel different. There was a certain intensity in Brenda's eyes, a determination that made Emily uneasy. Emily walked past Marcus's seat, casting a quick, casual glance at him. Marcus, feeling the brief shift of attention, looked up and met her eyes. Emily smiled politely, and he nodded in return. The moment passed without words. She could not pinpoint why Brenda's concern felt so pressing. It was not the first time she had encountered a nervous or suspicious passenger, but something about this situation nagged at her. Brenda watched Emily walk away, feeling frustrated and unheard. She looked around at the other passengers, some of whom had glanced her way during the exchange. They had returned to their own activities, seemingly unbothered. Brenda's annoyance deepened. How could everyone be so complacent? She leaned over to her neighbor, a middle-aged woman engrossed in a magazine. "Excuse me," Brenda whispered. "Did you notice that man near the exit? Does he not seem off to you?" The woman glanced up, surprised by the sudden question. She looked over at Marcus, who was now reading his book again. "I do not know," she replied hesitantly. "He looks fine to me. What is the problem?" Brenda frowned, feeling a flicker of irritation at the woman's nonchalance. "He has been acting suspicious since we boarded, keeps checking his bag like he is hiding something. I tried telling the flight attendant, but they do not seem to care. Is it not better to be safe than sorry?" The woman glanced again at Marcus, then back at Brenda. "Maybe, but I think if there was really a problem, the crew would handle it. I am sure it is nothing," she said, turning back to her magazine. Brenda clenched her jaw, frustration building. It was clear to her now. If no one else was going to take this seriously, she would have to. She kept her eyes on Marcus, determined not to let him out of her sight. She watched every movement, waiting for any sign that would justify her concerns. Marcus, oblivious to Brenda's scrutiny, continued reading. Occasionally taking a sip of water, he was content, lost in his book. The steady hum of the plane's engines was a comforting backdrop. His mind drifted thinking about his upcoming meeting in Los Angeles and the case he was working on. He had no idea that just a few rows behind him, someone's growing suspicion was about to turn into something much more disruptive. Brenda's unease grew with every passing minute. Her mind replayed news stories and events, each adding weight to her fears. She felt her pulse quicken, convinced that danger was close. She would wait, watch, and be ready. If Marcus made one wrong move, she would be the first to act. The cabin of the flight was filled with the usual sounds of a long-haul flight. The hum of the engines, the rustle of pages turning, and the occasional clink of a drink cart. Most passengers were relaxed, either lost in their in-flight entertainment or dozing off. But Brenda Lawson's eyes remained fixed on Marcus Reed. Her irritation and suspicion grew by the minute. Every time Marcus reached down to check his bag, Brenda's anxiety spiked. She felt the heat rise in her cheeks, her thoughts racing. This was not normal. Nobody checked their bag that often unless they had something to hide. She felt a responsibility to act, but each time she considered confronting him directly, she hesitated, unsure of the reaction she might provoke. Unable to stay quiet any longer, Brenda leaned over to the elderly man sitting next to her. "Excuse me," she whispered, trying to keep her voice down. "Have you noticed the man sitting near the emergency exit? He keeps checking his bag. Does that not seem suspicious to you?" The elderly man looked up from his crossword puzzle, squinting through his glasses. He glanced in Marcus's direction, but quickly returned his focus to his puzzle. "I had not noticed anything out of the ordinary," he said dismissively. "I am sure it is nothing." Brenda's frustration mounted. How could everyone be so blind? She looked around, hoping to catch the eye of another passenger. She needed someone to validate her concerns, to see what she saw. Her gaze landed on a young woman sitting across the aisle who seemed to be watching Marcus with a hint of curiosity. Brenda leaned over, speaking in a hushed tone. "Excuse me, do you see that man near the exit? Does he not seem off to you, like he is hiding something?" The young woman glanced at Marcus, then back at Brenda. Her expression was polite but uninterested. "I do not know," she said slowly. "I think he is just reading. Is there something wrong?" Brenda's patience snapped. "Yes, there is. He has been acting strange since we boarded. Keeps checking that bag of his like it has got something dangerous in it. I have told the flight attendant, but no one is doing anything about it." The young woman shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Maybe it is best to leave it to the flight crew. They are trained for this kind of thing, right?" Brenda's voice rose slightly, drawing attention from other passengers. "What if it is too late by then? What if something happens and we could have prevented it? I am not the only one who feels this way." Her tone was firm, trying to rally support from those around her. A few passengers turned to look at Marcus, who remained unaware of the attention. He continued reading. "Aussi." His posture relaxed. Emily, the flight attendant, noticed the growing number of heads turning and moved toward Brenda's seat. She leaned down, her voice low but firm. "Ma'am, I need you to keep your voice down. We do not want to disturb other passengers. What seems to be the problem?" Brenda gestured toward Marcus, her expression set in determination. "I have been telling you that man is acting suspiciously. He is checking his bag over and over. He is up to something. I know it." Emily took a deep breath, maintaining her professionalism. "Ma'am, I have spoken with you about this before. We cannot interfere without concrete evidence of a threat. If you could please calm down, I assure you we are monitoring the situation." Brenda's voice grew louder, cutting through the cabin noise. "Monitoring? What does that even mean? You are just going to sit back and wait until something terrible happens? That is not good enough." Passengers started to murmur, some looking concerned, others irritated. Marcus finally looked up, sensing the shift in atmosphere. His eyes met Brenda's for a moment, a look of confusion crossing his face. Emily noticed the attention Brenda was drawing and knew she had to de-escalate quickly. "Ma'am, I understand your concern, but raising your voice and alarming other passengers is not going to help. Please lower your voice or I will have to ask the captain to get involved." Brenda stood up abruptly, her face flushed with anger. "No, you do not understand. You are all blind. Something is wrong, and I am not going to sit here and do nothing." Her voice was sharp, cutting through the cabin's relative quiet. More heads turned. Whispers spread among the passengers. Emily placed a hand on Brenda's arm, trying to guide her back into her seat. "Ma'am, please sit down. Let us talk about this calmly." Brenda shook Emily's hand off, pointing directly at Marcus. "He is hiding something. I demand that his bag be searched right now." Marcus's eyes widened slightly. He looked around at the gathering crowd and then back at Brenda. Calmly, he closed his book and set it on his lap. His voice was measured, not rising to meet Brenda's accusation. "Ma'am, I assure you there is nothing dangerous in my bag. I am just trying to have a peaceful flight like everyone else." Brenda's eyes were blazing with indignation. "Peaceful flight? You expect us to believe that? What are you hiding in there?" Emily stepped between Marcus and Brenda, her voice firm but calm. "Okay, that is enough. We are not going to have this discussion here. Please, ma'am, take your seat. Sir, thank you for your patience." She turned to address the other passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. There is no cause for alarm. Please return to your seats." The murmurs in the cabin grew louder, and Emily knew she needed to get Brenda under control before the situation escalated further. She motioned for another flight attendant to assist. Together, they gently but firmly guided Brenda back into her seat. Brenda continued to protest, her voice a low but angry mutter. Marcus stayed seated, his face unreadable. He watched as Brenda was finally seated, her eyes still locked on him with distrust. He could feel the tension in the air, but he kept his composure. He knew better than to engage, especially with so many eyes on them. Instead, he picked up his book, flipping to where he left off, and began reading again. His calm demeanor stood in stark contrast to the turmoil around him. Emily, now at the front of the cabin, gave the passengers another reassuring smile, then moved to the galley to contact the captain. She needed to inform him of the situation just in case it escalated further. As she picked up the intercom phone, she cast a quick glance back at Marcus, who appeared relaxed, and Brenda, whose eyes were still burning with suspicion. She sighed. It was going to be a long flight. The hum of the airplane engines filled the cabin, but the tension was palpable. Passengers exchanged nervous glances, some whispering, others pretending to focus on their books or screens. Brenda sat in her seat, fuming. She could not understand why no one was taking her seriously. She glanced around, catching snippets of conversation. They were all talking about her. She could feel it, but it did not matter. She knew she was right. Brenda's eyes flicked back to Marcus. He was reading calmly, unbothered by the scene she had caused. His calmness irritated her even more. How could he sit there so calmly if he was not hiding something? Her thoughts churned. If no one else would act, she would have to take matters into her own hands. Marcus shifted in his seat, feeling the weight of Brenda's gaze. He glanced up briefly, catching her staring at him. Her eyes were narrowed, her jaw set. He knew that look well. It was the look of someone convinced they had uncovered a threat, someone who would not back down. He sighed quietly, turning back to his book, but he could not shake the feeling that things were about to get worse. Brenda could not stand it anymore. Her patience snapped. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up, making her way down the aisle toward Marcus. Passengers turned to watch as she moved, her steps quick and purposeful. Marcus looked up, sensing her approach. He set his book down on his lap, meeting her eyes. "You!" Brenda's voice was loud, cutting through the soft murmur of the cabin. "I want to know what is in that bag right now." She pointed directly at Marcus, her finger trembling with anger. Marcus stayed calm. "Ma'am, there is nothing in this bag that concerns you," he said evenly, his voice low. "Please sit down. You are causing a scene." Emily rushed down the aisle, her face a mask of concern. "Ma'am, please. You need to return to your seat," she said, placing a gentle hand on Brenda's arm. "You are disturbing the other passengers." Brenda shook Emily off, her focus entirely on Marcus. "No, I will not sit down until he opens that bag. I know he is hiding something dangerous. I am not going to let this plane be in danger because you are all too blind to see the truth." Marcus looked at Emily, who was trying to keep her composure. He could see the worry in her eyes, the fear that things were spiraling out of control. He kept his voice calm and controlled. "Ma'am, my bag only contains personal items. I promise you, there is nothing here that is a threat to anyone." Brenda laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Promises? You think we should just take your word for it? You are not fooling anyone. I have been watching you since we boarded. You keep checking that bag like you are worried someone will find out what is inside. Well, I am not afraid to call you out." Emily stepped between Brenda and Marcus, trying to act as a barrier. Her voice was firm. "That is enough. Please, ma'am, you need to return to your seat now. If you continue to disrupt the flight, I will have to involve the captain." The confrontation had drawn the attention of most of the passengers. Some leaned into the aisle to get a better view, while others whispered to their neighbors, speculating about what was happening. Marcus remained seated, his expression calm, his hands resting on his book. He knew any move he made could be misinterpreted and could escalate the situation even more. Brenda ignored Emily, her eyes still locked on Marcus. "I am not going to sit down until someone does something. If no one is going to listen, I will make sure they know what is happening here." Her voice rose with each word, her face flushed with anger. Emily turned to Marcus, her voice lower, almost pleading. "Sir, I am sorry, but could you please show her the contents of your bag? Maybe if she sees there is nothing to worry about, this can all be resolved peacefully." Marcus looked at Emily, then at Brenda, whose face was set in a determined scowl. He took a deep breath, nodding slowly. "Fine. If it helps keep the peace." He reached down, unzipped his carry-on bag, and carefully pulled out a small, clear plastic case containing his medication. He held it up for Brenda and Emily to see. "This is what is in my bag," Marcus said, his voice steady. "It is medication. I have a heart condition, and I need to keep this with me at all times." Emily nodded, relieved. "There, you see? There is nothing dangerous here." She turned to Brenda. "Please, let us put this behind us and finish the flight peacefully." But Brenda's face twisted in disbelief. She shook her head, stepping closer to Marcus. No, that is not it. That cannot be everything. You are lying. You have to be." Marcus's calm demeanor did not change. "Ma'am, I am not lying. This is the truth. Please sit down." Brenda's eyes darted around, searching for support among the other passengers. "Can you all not see he is trying to trick us? This is not right. We have to search him properly." Emily stepped forward, her voice firm. "Ma'am, that is enough. Please sit down now, or I will have to take further action." Brenda ignored her, reaching out as if to grab Marcus's bag. Before she could, Marcus gently but firmly took her wrist, stopping her. His grip was firm, but his expression remained calm. "Ma'am, please do not do this. There is no need for this kind of behavior." Brenda yanked her hand back, her eyes wide. "You are all in on it, are you not? You are all protecting him." She backed away, her voice rising in hysteria. Emily quickly motioned to another flight attendant, who moved toward them. "Ma'am, please come with us. We need to have a word with you at the back of the plane." Brenda hesitated, looking around at the faces staring at her, some sympathetic, others disapproving. She looked back at Marcus, still convinced that he was a threat, but faced with no support and the firm resolve of the flight attendants, she reluctantly turned and followed them toward the back of the plane, her steps slow and hesitant. Marcus watched her go, feeling the eyes of the passengers on him. He picked up his book again, trying to find his place. The tension in the cabin was thick. The whispers were loud, but Marcus kept his focus on the page, refusing to let the situation get to him. He had handled worse before. As Emily escorted Brenda away, she glanced back at Marcus, giving him a slight nod of thanks. He nodded back, a silent acknowledgement of the tension they were both managing. He knew this was not over yet, but for now, the immediate threat of escalation had passed. Marcus turned the page, his face a mask of calm as the plane flew steadily through the clouds, heading west. The atmosphere in this cabin was tense, like a string pulled too tight, ready to snap. Passengers had resumed their seats, but many still glanced toward the back of the plane where Brenda had been escorted. The murmur of voices was louder now, filled with speculation and concern. Marcus could feel the weight of the stares on him, but he kept his eyes on his book, maintaining his calm exterior. At the back of the plane, Brenda sat in a seat reserved for the flight crew, her arms crossed, her face flushed with anger. Emily stood beside her, trying to reason with her, but Brenda's mind was made up. Her voice, although hushed, carried a tone of indignation. "I am telling you, he is lying. He has to be. People like him always have a story, always have an excuse," Brenda insisted, her words sharp. Emily kept her voice low, soothing. "Ma'am, I understand that you are concerned, but Mr. Reed showed us his medication. There is no indication that he is a threat. Please try to calm down. We need to ensure everyone's safety, and right now your behavior is causing more alarm than anything else." Brenda shook her head, her eyes burning with frustration. "You do not get it. You do not see it. He is dangerous, I know it, and if you will not do something, I will." Emily sighed, realizing that reasoning with Brenda was futile. She nodded to Alex, the other flight attendant, who stood nearby, ready to assist. "Ma'am, we need to make sure you stay calm for the rest of the flight. If you continue to cause a disturbance, we will have no choice but to involve law enforcement when we land." Brenda's eyes widened, and she leaned back in her seat, silent for a moment. Then she muttered under her breath, "You will regret not listening to me." Emily decided to leave Brenda with Alex and move back down the aisle. She needed to check on the other passengers, reassure them, and make sure things did not escalate further. As she approached Marcus, she noticed the way other passengers quickly looked away, pretending not to have been staring. Emily stopped next to Marcus, who looked up from his book. "Mr. Reed," Emily said quietly, "I apologize for the disturbance. Is there anything you need?" Marcus shook his head. "No, thank you. I understand these things happen. I appreciate how you are handling it." Emily hesitated, then spoke softly so only Marcus could hear. "I just wanted to make sure there is no misunderstanding. If you need anything, please let us know. We want to ensure your comfort and safety as well as everyone else's." Marcus nodded, sensing her sincerity. "Thank you. I just want to get to Los Angeles without any more trouble." Emily gave a small smile and continued down the aisle, checking on other passengers. Marcus watched her go, then turned his attention back to his book, trying to regain his focus. But the tension in the cabin made it difficult. He could feel the eyes on him, the whispers that followed Emily's conversation with Brenda. He knew he had to say something, do something to ease the growing unease. Marcus looked around, gauging the mood. He took a deep breath and then stood up, carefully setting his book on his seat. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his badge. It was not something he liked to do, but he knew it might be the only way to diffuse the situation. He walked down the aisle, stopping at Emily's side. His voice was calm, but loud enough for those around to hear. "Excuse me, may I have everyone's attention for a moment?" The cabin quieted. Passengers turned to look at him. Marcus held up his badge, showing it clearly. "My name is Detective Marcus Reed. I am an undercover police detective with the New York Police Department. I have been on assignment and the medication in my bag is for a heart condition. I apologize if my behavior caused any concern, but I assure you there is no threat here." There was a moment of stunned silence. Some passengers looked relieved, others surprised. A few exchanged glances, nodding slowly. Marcus's calm, authoritative demeanor seemed to put many at ease. He turned to Emily, who gave him a small nod of thanks, appreciating his effort to calm things down. But the silence was broken by Brenda's voice, loud and indignant, from the back of the plane. "You are lying. This is just a cover. How do we know that badge is real? How do we know you are not using it to smuggle something dangerous?" Marcus turned to face her, his expression steady. "Ma'am, if you would like, you can call my department and verify my identity. The number is on the back of the badge. I am not here to cause harm. I am just trying to do my job and get to my destination safely." Brenda's face was flushed, her eyes wide with anger. "No, I do not believe you. This is all a trick. You cannot fool me." The tension in the cabin started to rise again. Marcus saw the fear in Brenda's eyes, the panic that had taken hold of her. He knew that nothing he said would convince her, but he also knew he had to keep calm and keep things under control. "Ma'am," Marcus said softly, "I understand you are scared, but I promise you there is nothing to fear from me. Let us just finish this flight without any more trouble. When we land, you are welcome to have the authorities verify everything." Brenda shook her head, her breathing rapid, her voice trembling. "No, no, I will not wait. I will not sit here and do nothing while you... Her voice trailed off, her words failing her. Emily stepped forward, her voice firm. "Ma'am, please sit down. We have spoken with Mr. Reed. Everything is under control. We need you to stay calm." Brenda looked around, seeing the other passengers watching her, some with concern, others with disapproval. She realized she had no support, no allies in this. Slowly, she sank back into her seat, still shaking her head. Marcus watched her for a moment, then turned back to Emily. "Thank you," he said quietly. He walked back to his seat, feeling the eyes on him, but ignoring them. He sat down, picked up his book, and opened it, but his mind was far from the pages. The flight continued in silence for a few minutes, the tension still thick, but no longer teetering on the edge of chaos. Passengers began to relax, turning back to their movies, books, and conversations. Emily moved quietly through the cabin, ensuring everyone was settled. Her eyes occasionally glanced toward Marcus and Brenda, ready to step in if needed. Brenda sat at the back, her face pale, her hands trembling slightly. She felt the weight of everyone's eyes, the judgment in their stares. She could not understand why they did not see what she saw, why they trusted Marcus's words, but she could not fight anymore. She was alone in her fear, and for now she had no choice but to wait until they landed. Marcus sat quietly, his eyes on his book, but his mind was alert, aware of the slightest movement around him. He knew this was not over, but he hoped the worst was behind them. He focused on breathing steadily, keeping his heart rate down, staying calm. There were still hours left in the flight, and anything could happen. The cabin was still tense after Marcus's revelation. While some passengers had settled back into their routines, others continued to cast weary glances toward him. In the back of the plane, where Brenda sat isolated and seething, the murmur of conversation was low, hushed, as if people were afraid of reigniting the tension that had filled the air moments earlier. Emily moved carefully through the aisles, offering reassurances to those who needed them, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. She could feel the unease like a ripple spreading out from the back of the plane where Brenda sat, her eyes burning with frustration and disbelief. Emily knew she had to keep the situation contained. She could not let things escalate any further. At the rear of the cabin, Alex kept a watchful eye on Brenda. She sat with her arms crossed, her face a mask of stubborn defiance. Alex had dealt with difficult passengers before, but there was something different about this. The intensity of Brenda's fear and anger was unsettling. He leaned over to Emily as she approached, his voice low. "She is still agitated. I do not think she's going to calm down anytime soon." Emily nodded, glancing over at Brenda. "I know. We need to make sure she does not cause any more disturbances. Can you stay with her and try to keep her calm? I will check in with the captain and see if we need to take any additional precautions." Alex nodded. "I will do my best." Emily made her way to the front of the plane. Entering the cockpit, Captain Ryan Mitchell turned in his seat, his expression serious. "What is the situation?" he asked. "We have managed to calm things down for now," Emily replied. But the woman, Brenda, is still agitated. She does not believe Marcus is telling the truth, even though he has shown his badge and explained everything. I am concerned she might try something else. The captain frowned. We cannot afford another outburst. It could cause a panic. If necessary, we may need to restrain her to ensure the safety of all passengers. Emily nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. I will keep an eye on her. Alex is with her now, trying to keep her calm. We will do everything we can to avoid using restraints, but we will be ready if it comes to that. Captain Ryan gave a slight nod. Keep me updated. If things get out of hand, we will notify air traffic control and have security waiting when we land. Emily left the cockpit, her mind racing with contingency plans. She had to keep Brenda calm and prevent any more incidents. She made her way back to the rear of the plane, where Alex stood guard near Brenda's seat. Brenda looked up as Emily approached, her eyes flashing with defiance. So, are you here to apologize, to admit that I am right? Emily shook her head, keeping her voice gentle but firm. No, ma'am. I am here to make sure you're okay. We need everyone to stay calm and cooperative so we can reach our destination safely. Brenda's jaw tightened. Cooperative? You mean compliant. You want me to just sit here and do nothing while that man carries out whatever plan he has. I will not do it. I cannot believe you are all falling for his lies. Emily took a deep breath. Mr. Reed is not lying. He has shown his credentials, and there is nothing to suggest he is a threat. Your behavior, however, is causing concern among other passengers. We need you to remain calm and stay in your seat. If you cannot do that, we will have to take further measures. Brenda's eyes widened. Further measures? What are you going to do? Arrest me? I am the one trying to keep everyone safe. Emily met Brenda's gaze steadily. Ma'am, we are responsible for the safety of all passengers on this flight. If you continue to cause a disturbance, we will have to restrain you for the remainder of the flight. Please, just stay calm and remain seated. Brenda glared at Emily, but something in her tone must have struck a chord. She leaned back in her seat, still fuming, but her voice dropped. Fine. But if something happens, it is on you. All of you. Emily nodded, relieved that Brenda seemed to be complying. At least for now. She signaled to Alex to keep watch and then returned to her duties, checking on passengers, offering smiles and reassurances. The tension in the cabin was still thick, but it was no longer on the verge of boiling over. As Emily moved down the aisle, Marcus watched her approach. He had been quietly observing the situation from his seat, aware of every movement and every shift in the cabin's atmosphere. He could see the strain on Emily's face, the way her eyes flickered between him and the back of the plane. When she reached his seat, he looked up, his expression calm. "How is it going back there?" Marcus asked softly. Emily sighed. She is still upset, but she is staying in her seat for now. We are keeping a close watch. I am sorry this has caused you so much trouble. We are doing our best to manage the situation. Marcus nodded. I know you are. You are handling it well. Let me know if there is anything I can do to help. Emily gave him a small smile. Just stay calm. The less we escalate, the better. Marcus returned to his book, but his senses were on high alert. He could feel the tension still lingering in the air, a subtle undercurrent that threatened to resurface at any moment. He knew this was not over, but he hoped that things would stay quiet until they landed. At the back of the plane, Brenda sat rigidly in her seat, her mind racing. She could not believe that everyone had sided with Marcus, that they could not see the danger she saw so clearly. Her anger simmered, but she kept it contained, knowing that any further outburst would only make things worse for her. Alex stood nearby, watching Brenda closely. He could see the turmoil in her eyes, the way her hands gripped the armrests as if she was holding herself back from doing something drastic. He remained ready, prepared to step in if needed. Minutes passed, turning into an hour. The flight settled into a tense rhythm. Passengers quietly attended to their own activities. Emily continued her rounds, keeping an eye on both Marcus and Brenda, aware that she was the thin line keeping the peace. Finally, Emily approached Alex and nodded. I think we are okay for now, she whispered. Just keep watch and let me know if anything changes. Alex nodded, his eyes never leaving Brenda. We will do. Emily turned to walk away, her mind still focused on maintaining control. She knew the situation could flare up again at any moment, but for now, they were managing. The plane continued its journey through the sky, carrying its passengers toward their destination. Each one hoping the tension would not resurface. In her seat, Brenda continued to fume, her thoughts circling back to Marcus and the threat she believed he posed. But for now, at least she remained silent, her anger simmering below the surface, waiting for another spark. And Marcus, though outwardly calm, remained vigilant, knowing that his ability to stay composed was key to keeping the peace. The plane began its descent, and the seatbelt sign illuminated with a soft ding. Captain Ryan Mitchell's voice came over the intercom, calm and reassuring, announcing their approach to Los Angeles. Passengers shifted in their seats, some stretching, others packing away laptops and books in preparation for landing. The tension that had hovered over the cabin for most of the flight seemed to lighten as people prepared for the journey's end. Marcus Reed felt the plane tilt slightly as it began its descent. He closed his book and tucked it back into his carry-on bag, making sure his medication was safely secured. He glanced briefly toward the back of the plane where Brenda sat, still under the watchful eye of Alex. She had not made another outburst, but Marcus could tell by her rigid posture and the way her eyes darted around that she was far from calm. Emily made one last walk down the aisle, checking that passengers were buckled in and ready for landing. She paused briefly at Marcus's seat, offering a smile. "We are almost there," she said quietly. "Thank you for your patience." Marcus nodded. "I just want to get through this without any more issues. You have handled everything well." Emily returned the nod, appreciating his calm demeanor. "Let us hope things stay quiet until we are on the ground." As Emily continued down the aisle, she noticed Alex signaling her. She quickened her pace, her heart sinking slightly. When she reached the back, Alex leaned in, his voice low. "Brenda has been muttering to herself. She is agitated again. We need to be ready in case she tries something." Emily glanced at Brenda, who was staring straight ahead, her face flushed with frustration. Emily knelt beside her, keeping her voice soft. "Ma'am, we are about to land. I need you to stay calm and remain in your seat. We are almost there." Brenda's eyes flicked to Emily, her voice a harsh whisper. "This is not over. I am not letting him get away with whatever he is planning. You will see. You will all see." Emily felt a chill, but forced herself to smile. "Please just stay seated until we land. Everything will be addressed when we are on the ground." Brenda did not respond, but she did not make any moves to get up either. Emily took a deep breath and returned to her station, signaling Alex to keep a close eye on Brenda. The plane continued its descent. The city of Los Angeles was coming into view below. Emily hoped that once they landed, everything would go smoothly. As the plane touched down, there was a collective sigh of relief from the passengers. The usual sounds of unbuckling seatbelts and the rustling of bags filled the cabin. Marcus remained seated, knowing there was no rush. He waited as other passengers stood and began retrieving their luggage from the overhead compartments. "Ladies and gentlemen," Captain Ryan Mitchell's voice echoed through the intercom. "Welcome to Los Angeles. Please remain seated until the seatbelt sign is turned off and the aircraft has come to a complete stop at the gate. We appreciate your cooperation and hope you have a pleasant stay." Marcus felt the plane taxiing to the gate. He glanced out the window, watching the airport crew preparing for their arrival. Emily moved toward him, her face calm but focused. "We have contacted airport security. They will be waiting when we reach the gate," she said softly. Marcus nodded. "That is probably for the best. Thank you." As the plane came to a halt and the seatbelt sign turned off, passengers stood up, eager to disembark. Emily and Alex positioned themselves near Brenda, ready to intervene if necessary. Marcus stayed in his seat, knowing he would be among the last to leave. He could hear the murmur of voices, a mix of relief and curiosity. The cabin door opened, and a pair of uniformed security officers stepped inside. Emily motioned them toward the back, where Brenda sat. One of the officers, a tall man with a calm demeanor, approached Brenda, speaking in a low, authoritative tone. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us. We would like to have a word with you about the incident during the flight." Brenda's eyes widened, and she shook her head. "No, I am not going anywhere. I have not done anything wrong. It is him. He is the one you should be arresting." She pointed wildly in Marcus's direction. The officer remained calm. "Ma'am, we just need to speak with you. If you could please come with us, we can sort everything out." Brenda stood up abruptly, her voice rising. "You are all in on it. You are protecting him. I am the only one who sees the truth." The second officer, a woman with a firm grip, gently but firmly took Brenda's arm. "Ma'am, we need you to calm down. Please come with us, and we will handle everything appropriately." Brenda tried to pull away, her voice turning into a shrill cry. "No, this is not right. You cannot do this." The officers, maintaining their composure, guided Brenda toward the exit. Her protests echoed through the cabin. Passengers watched in silence, some looking shocked, others relieved that the situation was being handled. Emily followed closely, ensuring that everything was under control. Marcus remained seated, watching as Brenda was led off the plane. He could feel the eyes of other passengers on him, but he ignored them, focusing instead on the steady professionalism of the officers. Emily returned to his side after a moment, her expression a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "They will take her to a holding area for questioning," Emily explained quietly. "We have also informed the authorities about the situation, so everything will be checked thoroughly." Marcus nodded. "Thank you. You have handled everything with professionalism. I appreciate it." Emily gave a small smile. "Just doing my job. I am glad we were able to get through this without more problems." As the last of the passengers began to disembark, Marcus stood, retrieving his carry-on bag. He moved down the aisle, feeling the tension in his shoulders ease slightly. He nodded to Emily one last time before stepping off the plane. The cool air of the jet bridge hit him as he walked toward the terminal. In the terminal, Marcus saw Brenda being escorted by the security officers, still arguing. Her voice echoed off the walls. He watched as they guided her toward a secure area, her protests fading as she was taken out of sight. Marcus turned and headed toward the baggage claim, his steps steady. The events of the flight played over in his mind, but he knew he had handled them as best he could. He had faced worse situations in his line of work, but the weight of being unjustly accused still lingered. As he reached the baggage claim area, Marcus took a deep breath, ready to move on from the day's events. Behind him, the passengers of the flight filtered out, talking quietly among themselves, some glancing in the direction Brenda had been taken. The tension of the flight was dissipating, replaced by the bustle of the airport and the anticipation of arriving in a new city. For Marcus, the day was not over. He knew there would be reports to file, questions to answer, and reflections to make. But for now, he was content to let the noise of the airport wash over him, a reminder that life moved on even after moments of conflict and misunderstanding. As he walked toward the exit, Marcus felt a sense of resolve. Today had been challenging, but he had faced it with dignity and professionalism, and in the end, that was all anyone could do.